walk you through the basics of the React router. This is version 13.3. It's going to update soon, so everything you hear now may be dated in just a few weeks. Okay, so let's start with Webpack, because that's a good place to begin. We use Webpack quite a bit, and that's how we get this up and running. Okay.
Can you make your screen just a little bit bigger? Your code. Make your iTerm just a little bit bigger.
Okay.
There you go.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right. So let's start with kind of the overall directory structure here. Node modules here. I neglected to save any of that, so we'll not worry about that, other than we've got Webpack, Webpack developer server. I'll fix that and push this up to the repository so you guys can play with it later. We've got Webpack, which is going to run this line here, Webpack dev server, and it's going to pull in a configuration from Webpack dev.js. Webpack dev.js has a basic configuration that says, hey, load up Babel loader. That's going to take all our fancy ES6 and ES7 stuff and transpile it back down to JavaScript that we can use today in a browser. And it'll take care of the React compilation as well, which is really nice for us. We've got a few plugins here. Hot module replacement is really nice because as you save the files, it will push those up to the web browser and speeds up your recompile time pretty fast. Okay, inside of Webpack, we've got a public path assets, and that's where the Webpack dev server is going to serve from. If you take a look down here, we'll stop this here. And this is, when I actually run this little script for run Webpack, it's going to go through and compile all of that JavaScript, and we can scan up here way back right here, and it's going to tell us that things are being served from assets right there. I'm sorry, I'll make this bigger so that you guys can see that as well. Okay, so it tells us first that it's running on localhost 8080, Webpack dev server, and that the result is served from assets. And so inside of assets, just like any web server, we're going to come up to here, and it's just got a regular old web page that has a body and then a script, bundle.js, that holds all of the regular Webpack stuff. And everything that Webpack picks up with the loaders is going to get dropped into bundle.js. And the entry point right here is JavaScript. It's like your main statement if you were coding in C. That's where everything starts executing, and everything that router entry point includes will be run as well. Okay, so having said all of that, let's start on the actual React router piece. So here's the router entry point file. And in here we're using, I believe this is ES6. Don't need the semicolons on the end. We've got React, we've got React router, and then we've got 3 different React components that we're pulling in from other spots. Then we have a JSX component here, which is named routes, and we're going to take routes and run those routes via the router. And handlers, well, so that's the basic idea there. There's coupling, I guess you could say, between the routes and what is actually rendered. So we have the router here, and we say, okay, so what's going to happen when we go to route /? And the default route for route / is called going to be handled by start here. So let's take a look at that component. Not much. It's going to say, okay, back over here in document body, it's going to insert a div and then router link to the entry path. That corresponds to this path here. And with the params entry ID, and this is the actual text that's going to be used. Okay, let's pull that actually up on the screen. So here we've got assets, got our hash mark, there's the /. Here is entry 1. I'm sorry, did somebody have something to say there? I saw Justin's.
No, I think it was just Slack.
Okay. Slack had something to say.
Yeah.
So we look at this and we're like, okay, so what does that actually look like underneath? That's wrong key combination. So let's look at the sources here, and that's terrible elements. There we go. And it's just a regular old anchor tag that goes to /blogs1. We'll jump back here and note that got a blogs route, and then automatically the router is going to add a / after that blogs, and then the path after that, this little colon says that's a parameter. You can fit in anything there, wildcard basically. And so blogs, and this child is going to be /, and then 1 is going to be the entry ID. That's the entry ID that we're putting in right there. Any questions at this point?
Are you manually telling it to use the history there, or are you?
No, it'll track the history on its own as long as you're using a React link. So the router link, when you click on that, it will take care of updating the history. So I click on this, it says, okay, we've come over to here, click back, forward. It takes care of doing that.
Okay, never mind on my question. I thought I saw something different. I thought you were using the browser history.
It does go into the actual browser history, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called right now. Sorry. Instead of using the hash mark, can anybody tell me what that's called? I can't remember right now.
Oh, URL fragment, something like that.
No, I can't remember right now.
Okay, well, we'll keep going. Okay, so once we say, hey, we want to route down blogs, we have a handler here, blog container. And when we actually, click on this link here, it's then going to, we're going to now have blogs/1, and it's going to pass that down to the first handler. Going to blog container here, really simple stuff. Comes in here and says, okay, I'm going to render this, and I'm also going to, in props, give you some parameters to play with. Params is how the router, basically when you're working with the router, params are your props. They're how you pass in parameters to each of the handlers. And so this path entry ID over here is going to be passed in as a param. Let's put in a debugger here just so you guys can see. Refresh. And sorry. Okay, so we're in the debugger here, right where I dropped. It looks a little bit different because it's been all transpiled back down. And we're going to say, okay, this dot props. We've got a params object there. and it has our entry ID. And then it's going to come down these steps, say, okay, I'm going to render that, and then here's a route handler that it's going to pass those parameters further onto. So basically, inside of blog header, we could plug in any number of other handlers. Say we actually wanted to have several different things that could be showing up. Let me say continue here. We've got blog header, and then we've got post entries. Say instead of just having posts, we wanted to we'll come back over here. Okay. And we wanted to create a new place here, and we just want to say comments. And so then just a and we're going to come back here and say post entries, save that one as comments, JS. And then we should have something that we can actually, let's make this comments as well.
Do you also want to change post entries to comments up on line 4?
Yeah, that's important too, but it actually wouldn't kill it because when you export it, it doesn't care what it's called. This over here is actually what names it.
Yeah, because you've got an export default, so we're good. But.
Yeah. But yeah, I've probably forgotten something else that's going to mess us up here, but we'll see. And let's get rid of the debugger. So now if we go to comments, one says, hey, you don't have that path. I probably, no? Comment ID. Let's try. Okay, so got a little interruption there. We can note that the path here is under blogs. And so we have blogs, comments, comment ID. So if we come under here, we have blogs, and if we have an immediate parameter, we can say, hey, I'm matching this as an immediate parameter, 2. If I want to use comments, it's going to match that, and we'll say 3. That's our debugger again, and we're notice that it's now comments 3 here. This is really nice for swapping out, make a container on the outside here. And so our outside route will correspond to, say, maybe our title bar and a menu on the outside. And then inside, we might have a number of different routes that correspond to what that interior piece is going to be. Whether that's, your blog posts or editing your posts before you put them up, or whatever your functionality is, and keeping that outside part the same. Sorry to use like blogs as an example. I'm terribly uncreative. It's probably beat to death, but it's a common one.
Yeah, it works.
Okay, and so that's pretty much all I've got for you at this point. So there's links, there's routes, and there's handlers that use those routes. And the important thing to remember at the routes is we have, an outside route, and in that handler right there, select blog container. See what we've got here. We will have a router.route handler that says, hey, any children of this route, render them at this point in the HTML. So and we can look at, examples of that. And it's just rendering a div, h2, comments, whatever, inside when we're rendering comments. And if we want to actually look at that, I'm sure we can pull over and look at the elements here and open it all up. So the div, h2, and then, of course, React likes to add spans about everything, but you basically see what's happening here. Okay, so that's a little show and tell with the React router. Any last questions?
I just wanted to make a comment to you, Robert. What I was talking about earlier was the history location in the browser. So if you go back to your code.
All right.
And down there on line 22, it says router.run. If you stick router.history location in after the routes, then you won't use the pound symbol. And some people want to use that, but it's new stuff that old browsers can't use. So
okay,
that's what I was talking about. I thought you'd have done that somewhere else somehow because I didn't see the hash tag in there. So pound symbol.
Gotcha. So I wish I could screen share and you could is this the proper syntax that I'm showing right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in theory that should work. Maybe it will. You have to get rid of the pound symbol in there. Go back to the home page, if you will. Back to
gotcha.
To assets. Yeah.
Okay. So I might have to.
So your server has to be able to support it too. So.
Okay.
Just go to /assets and let's see if it'll work. I'm kind of curious.
Okay.
Just get rid of the
All right. Make sure you have a route path equals assets somewhere in your routes. I'm wondering. So
get rid of the assets.
Nope, that's just Webpack.
Nope. All right.
Okay.
In theory, that's what it's supposed to do, but there's more setup that has to happen.
I'll have to check that out later sometime. Any other comments or questions? Or
no, that's awesome. Thanks for showing it to us.
Welcome. Guess I will talk to you guys later.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.